Anin Manogajeb, and hello. You are all respected leaders from our First Nations communities, and I am honestly entirely humbled to be among you. I'm also very happy to greet the South African delegation here today. And hello as well to our valued partners from the private sector and investment world who may be present. Chimiigwech to Paris and Stan and the conference organizers for inviting me to spend time on today's agenda. I ask for your patience. I'll try not to rush, but hopefully I'm not rushed. I have a few things I'd like to say. I'd also like to give thanks to Elder Macaulay and Chief Claire Salt for their words of welcome. I am Chief Kelly LaRocca of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, also known as MSIFN. MSIFN is one of 6 communities of the Mississauga or Michi-Saugig Nation and is one of 7 signatories of the 1923 Williams Treaties. We acknowledge all our ancestral relations in our territories. Scugog's story is one of resilience. Since time immemorial on these very treaty lands, from pre-Confederation treaties such as the Gunshot Treaty, post-Confederation treaties such as the Williams Treaties of 1923, and through to our 2018 Williams Treaties Final Settlement Agreement with the Crown, we've fought for recognition of our rights to harvest, to sustain our culture and protect and share resources honorably. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my community, and then I'll speak to some of the organizations we see here on the screen. Scugog boasts a whomping population of 300 citizens. Scugog First Nation is small, but mighty. And we are a very proud Mississauga Anishinaabeg community. We have approximately 80 members on reserve, with the rest residing across Canada, mostly in and around the City of Toronto and the City of Vancouver. We are a landlocked community at what is technically the northernmost point of a peninsula. We are without vast natural resources. We have no water frontage on reserve and are bifurcated by a regional road. However, we're very proud. We're proud to have had 100% voluntary enlistment of all eligible men in both Great Wars. We are the physically closest First Nation to the City of Toronto and have been greatly impacted by settlement, industry, and the high populations that surround us. That said, the future is very bright for Scugog. Gaming is our original anchor business, which we achieved through our entrance into First Nations lands management. We became one of the original signatories to the Framework Agreement for First Nations Lands Management in 1996, just a hair behind Georgina Island First Nation, with our land code coming into force in the year 2000. Among many other things since that time, Scugog has passed water and sewer fee laws, which were first approved by the Tax Commission in 2017 and tested by a judicial review by the OLG, much to their dismay. A financial administration law and a borrowing law in 2022. And then we later accomplished financial management system certification through FMB in 2024. Scugog achieved clean drinking water in 2021 and constructed community wastewater treatment in 2025. But we are still very interested in the tools that FNFA has to offer. We have benefited greatly by the hard work of the Lands Advisory Board, the First Nations Finance Authority, the First Nations Financial Management Board, and the First Nations Tax Commission. We are going to need those organizations a great deal more in the future. Of late, we have made it our mission to become a major player in the clean energy sector. Please allow me to explain our thinking. In a world of escalating tariffs and economic uncertainty from supply chain disruptions and inflation, First Nations are not just surviving, we are leading. First Nations investments powered by collaborative structures like special purpose vehicles or SPVs, which you will hear about later today, they deliver solid financial certainty to energy projects. In a few minutes, I'll cover the landscape for that, our tools for success, and why bringing multi-nation SPVs to the table will unlock billions in support. I am convinced that by working together, we will continue our culture of resilience in building a future of shared prosperity. We all feel the headwinds. Global tariffs are jacking up costs for imported solar panels, battery, and transmission components, 20 to 50% in some cases, while uncertainty around interest rates and geopolitics stalls private investment. Ontario's grid is straining. Demand could double by 2050 from EVs, data centers, and electrification, creating a real risk of brownouts without swift action. But here's the strength of First Nations. We are not passive investors. We're inherent rights holders with title, Aboriginal rights, and treaty-backed protections to lands and resources, backed by Section 35. Our investments aren't speculative. They're grounded in reconciliation, UNDRIP, and the policies mandating Indigenous participation. In this climate, we de-risk projects by pooling capital, sharing the due diligence that's required, and leveraging low-cost public financing. For proponents, that means faster timelines, lower equity hurdles, and certainty for them in a volatile market. For us, it's economic self-determination, the long game that was talked about yesterday, turning cumulative impacts from past developments into intergenerational wealth for our future. None of this kind of opportunity happens in silos. First Nations with treaty rights need to work together, and those First Nations need to build alliances with trusted partners, which is no easy task. An example of such an alliance for MSIFN is our bilateral agreement with our local Durham Region government, which sets a government-to-government blueprint of sorts, addressing historical treaty matters, supporting our joint interest in environmental protection and enhancement, and co-creating economic opportunities in clean energy and infrastructure. It is about reciprocity. As Durham grows sustainably, we will flex our stewardship, our environmental protection strategies, and our treaty rights. Building on that, our 2024 MOU with Alderville First Nation, Curve Lake First Nation, and Hiawatha First Nation, who are fellow Mississaugas treaty partners. This targets shared wins in Ontario's energy boom. We are aligning on the Independent Electricity Service Operator, IESO's, long-term procurements for generation and storage, major game-changing transmission and provincially significant power generation projects, as well as major transportation. A working group, as well, sifts priorities on a case-by-case basis, ensuring that our businesses, such as MSIFN's Voyageur Construction Services, with its 150-strong workforce tackling energy and municipal civil projects, gets priority procurement. This model is not a rent-a-feather model. It's authentic rights-holding partnerships amongst communities. Special purpose vehicles are nimble entities that let First Nations invest collectively and pool their capital towards a single investment for a specific purpose. A typical SPV will hold our equity in big energy generation projects, giving our staff the tools to manage negotiations and eventually funnel those long-term returns to members, backed by investments from financial institutions and further backed by loan guarantees from federal or provincial entities. SPVs reduce asset ownership burdens while providing us with strategic oversight. Among others, we have a new SPV called Jabaskatoon, which translates to the action of sifting, or to sift. Jabaskatoon is our sift co to sift through numerous opportunities with other First Nation partners for appropriate clean energy investments. It is very helpful in screening potential partners in IESO energy procurement rounds and behind-the-meter energy opportunities, advancing projects that are approved into project-specific SPVs. Flow-through capacity funding covers legal costs. Alderville, Curve Lake, and Hiawatha, and MSIFN are now piloting this model for 10+ opportunities at this time. In the shadow of tariffs, SPVs shine. They combine our scale. Several First Nations uniting brings billions in firepower while spreading out the risks. Proponents get committed capital fast. We get governance and oversight rights. It provides certainty for all parties and drastically minimizes delay. Scugog, MSIFN, we won't go it alone. We can leverage federal and provincial financing tools to supercharge our efforts, such as low-interest loans offered through the Canada Infrastructure Bank, guaranteed monies up to $700 million through the Canada Indigenous Loan Guarantee Program, the unlocking of bonds at AAA rates through FNFA, regional scale grants and loans through the Canada Development Investment Corp and the First Nations Bank of Canada, and blended financing for generation, transmission, and storage through Ontario's Building Ontario Fund and Indigenous Opportunities Financing Program. These are not handouts. They're reconciliation investments, yielding 5 to 10% returns, far outplacing inflation. In uncertain times, they shield us from rate hikes, ensuring major projects hit their timelines. A far cry from coming hat in hand, to quote one leader in the province of Ontario. First Nations are seizing opportunities to lead the way. In spite of all that I just listed, one day we will realize our goal of a sovereign wealth fund for Ontario First Nations. In the meantime, we'll have to lobby hard. Ontario's Lake Ontario Energy Corridor from the city of Pickering to Napanee is exploding with over $100 billion in clean infrastructure, new transmission lines, storage systems, hydro refurbishments, and nuclear at OPG's Darlington and Pickering sites, as well as Port Hope. The OPG Port Hope proposal is 10,000 megawatts of new nuclear alone, 25% of Ontario's current capacity, plus IEO's procurements for long-duration storage, solar, wind, and biomass. Major proponents are knocking on our door with proven equity models. One example is Hydro One's 50-50 split, 50% equity for treaty rights holding nations on lines over $100 million. We have 4 new massive transition lines in our backyard. Multi-rights holding First Nations special purpose vehicles are a key financial tool, and these SPVs are required to handle financing matchmaking with banks and institutions. That one example is not a one-off. These arrangements are our daily work. We routinely structure SPVs, build agreements, conduct project due diligence, and drive the legal agreements home. The energy sector in the GTA and Lake Ontario Energy Corridor is booming, and we are positioned to lead these projects in a way that allows us to do better for the environment and aligns with our values. In closing, we ask that leaders and partners please join us at the table. For First Nations, let's continue to expand our SPVs, playing to each other's strengths and learning from one another's experiences. For investors and proponents, partner with our SPVs for de-risked, tariff-proof funding. Together, I'm convinced we will turn uncertainty into self-sufficiency. It is the long-term game. Reliable grids, thriving communities, and a net zero future. Miigwech for listening. Thank you for your valuable time and attention.